It is truly a delight to be here at this annual function of Tughlaq. Though I am sorry, I cannot speak to you in Tamil, and therefore I would have preferred if there was someone to interpret what I say in Tamil. And if I have an interpreter who is like Cho, then I would say that the translation would be far, far better than the original speech.
அதாவது அவர் என்ன சொல்றாருன்னா, அவர் சொன்னதை நான் சொல்ல போறது இல்லைன்றார். இப்படி ஒரு நம்பிக்கையுடன் அவர் ஆரம்பிக்கிறார். He has no faith in me. That is why he says that what I am going to speak is not what he speaks.
No, I can, after listening to him, as interpreted to me by Guru Murthy, Narendra Bhai was being told, translated by our LG, Ganeshan. And so both of us were enjoying the Tamil speech. And therefore it is that I always feel, when I go to areas like, say, Kerala or Tamil Nadu, or sometimes even the interior parts of Karnataka and Andhra, or some other areas also, the interior, and I am forced to speak in English or in Hindi, then I insist on the translation being done in the local language. But in this case, I was told that so far as the audience of the Tughlaq is concerned, those who come here, they will not need any translations. I know that. But the most educated audiences also would understand something in Tamil far more effectively than in English or Hindi. But it entirely depends on Cho. He's a close friend. I leave it to him.
Sir, I feel I should not interrupt your speech with my translation and spoil the flow of it. I am sure the audience present here will understand every word that you say.
I leave it to you. He's abandoned me, find you. Even though he's a very close friend since a long time. And if I feel delighted to be here, one reason is that Cho has been a very dear friend for a long time. And so when this time he told me that you had come earlier, Narendra Bhai had also come once earlier, I would like both of you to come together. I said nothing like it. Friends, first of all, I inquired from Guru Murthy whether this annual function of Tughlaq is held always on Pongal Day, and he said yes. It was founded on Pongal. So first of all, let me greet you all. Pongal greetings. It's after all a day which is observed with different names throughout the country. I have been a resident for the first 20 years of my life in Sindh, Karachi. And there we called it Uttarayan. Gujarat also it's called Uttarayan. In Assam it's known as Bihu. And here Narendra Bhai is here, and there is kite flying on this day. People take a dip in a lake or a river and worship the sun. and that is supposed to bring blessings, remarkable. But flying kites is something very prevalent in Gujarat, and I do not know how many of you have been to Gujarat these days. I would urge you to go there. And if you go on this day, you will see the kind of atmosphere that has been created by Narendra Bhai by organizing a kite flying festival, international. And you would be surprised to know that even across the border in Punjab, in Lahore also, kite flying is done with such vigor that it's almost a frenzy on this day. And therefore, I think that this festival of Pongal or Makar Sankranti or Uttarayan, whatever you call it, it only indicates how strong are the bonds of culture. I have always regarded that here in India, what binds us together is culture, and therefore I describe it as cultural nationalism. And it would be interesting for you to know that there were fanatics in Lahore who these days carried on a campaign against kite flying. They said that it is a Hindu remnant, and therefore this should be banned, this should be stopped, it should be discontinued. Nothing happened there. It continues as before, goes on. And therefore it is that I often feel that the bonds of culture even disregard religious diversities. Religious diversities will remain, and they should remain, nothing wrong about it. But the bonds of culture should be understood, and they should be really respected. My first experience of what is cultural nationalism came in a very curious way. When India got independence, but of course simultaneously came partition of the country, and because of partition, the small population of Hindus in Sindh it became evident that we have to migrate. And migration started because killings had started in other parts of what became Pakistan. And therefore, migration of Hindus started. And those days, there was a proposal to construct a port like Karachi in Kandla in Gujarat. And there were people there, leaders of the Hindu society, who thought that the Hindus might migrate to Kutch in Gujarat. And my father also started thinking in that way. But my grandmother, who was at that time 80 years old, she told my father that I believe that you are thinking of moving to Gujarat, to Kutch. She said, well, you can go and settle wherever you want, but you take cognizance of the fact that I am 80 years old. I do not know how long I will remain. How many more years, 2 years, 3 years, I am to live for more. I do not know. I would be very happy if you can take me for my last few years to Varanasi, to Kashi, so that when my end comes, I am there on the banks of the Ganga. Now, this is something that is prevalent throughout the country. And these are traits which combine the whole country in a way. When I first went to Surat in Gujarat, I was told about the very good food that is there. And a friend told me that here the proverb circulating is Surat no Jiman, Kashi no Maran. And if you want to have good food, have it in Surat. And if you want to go and die somewhere, go and die in Kashi.